Bonjour à toutes et à tous. Nous sommes l'équipe Esprit d'aventure, une association de l'ESC Dijon qui a pour but de promouvoir le développement durable.
Cette année, nous sommes partis en Suède étudier les Cleantech.
Allez, place au reportage.
Yeah, my name's Lewis, and this is my company called Unity Sweden. It's a short-range electric city car that we're developing here in the south of Sweden, super technologically advanced. It's just for urban transport, so short-range, light L7E vehicle. A lot of really obvious problems like the large-scale environmental problems that are obvious, like the oil spills and all the result of the fossil fuel industry. But then we look at the air quality in our cities. In fact, if you look at many countries like the United Kingdom, more people die prematurely from vehicle emissions than from car accidents. So this is a problem that just completely doesn't need to exist anymore. So there are examples of problems, or let's say symptoms. I think one of the major problems here is we're now shifting to electric mobility, especially here in Europe. There's a really quick shift. But with vastly different technology, we're kind of staying with the same format of car. The large, heavy mechanical machine that was invented as an iteration of the horse and wagon. We can see that there's an opportunity here to completely rethink the logic of the machine. If we start with why do people need such a big, heavy, overpowered car, these are experiential factors. So people like the experience of super fast acceleration or a really loud motor, like something like that. But these experiential factors cause problems. We've been sold the idea that, for example, a car needs to be really big and heavy in order for it to be safe. We want to change these experiential factors to kind of software. So instead of having the car is exciting and exotic because of how far it can go, we can make the car exciting and exotic because of the experience inside the car. So some of the technologies include a augmented reality heads-up display that sits in front of you, where we're tracking your head so that we can make it all 3D. We're tracking your hands so that we can interact with it, so if different things pop up and so forth. Another really important innovation is our steer-by-wire system. So steer-by-wire means when you're steering, it's an electronic signal that actuates the steering movement and not a mechanical linkage that actuates the steering movement. The mechanical property says I got to turn like this in order to turn the wheels, so we have to design around them mechanical limitations. By removing that necessity and calling it electronic signal, then we can design it around the needs of the human. What's necessary for them? What do they want? Created the Unity Arc, made it open source so that people anywhere can buy the Arc and plug into it, download the software for free, and make their own electric vehicle. So it's a bit of a, you could say it's a bit of a branding exercise, but it's obviously there to accelerate the next generation of electric cars so they can be designed and developed anywhere. And we can just get more people interested in that. The uptake of electric vehicles is going to be very exponential, because already when you buy a combustion engine car now, you have to understand it's going to be harder to sell. Especially as people become more aware of the problems that they cause. It means the resale value is less, and these are all things that people factor into their buying decision.
Notre périple se poursuit maintenant vers Stockholm pour aller rencontrer Jeremiah Dutton de l'entreprise Trifilon.
Sure. What we do is we basically make lightweight biocomposites. So we get hemp fibers, natural fibers, to like plastic and to bond well. And by doing that, we can create products that are very, very lightweight, that are stronger, and that are greener. And these have many applications, whether it's in the automotive industry, the furniture industry, or the consumer goods and sporting goods industries. So that's injection molded parts. So basically we go from a raw natural fiber, hemp, sometimes even flax fibers, to a refined, modified, optimized fiber that then we mix and blend with plastics. And primarily we're working with polypropylene and ABS. And there we produce materials that then can be injection molded into lightweight products, whether that be, as I said, the automotive sector, the interior design, or the consumer goods sector. At the same time, we also started looking at another sector for compression molding. So this is also polypropylene and hemp fibers, which then can be compression molded into very lightweight, non-structural parts. And so that's what we do. We basically make products stronger, lighter, and greener. It really depends. The whole reason why you use composites and why you move away from, say, metal or wood and you use composites is because you can produce a whole object, you can produce complex parts in one shot. So while the underlying material might be a little bit more expensive, the production steps, instead of welding, for instance, and doing a whole series of taking maybe 17 different parts and welding them all together to form a chair, for instance, or a component in an automotive. Instead, you can simply injection mold it or vacuum form it. And that's the real beauty of composites. And composites are reinforced plastics, essentially. So it's both an improvement in your production and also usually a big weight savings. So from a sustainability perspective, it's always better to reduce weight, especially in the automotive sector. If you can reduce weight, you can usually reduce emissions. I would say that in general, there's as I see it, a few big events. One is what happened in Paris, with the climate talks. So you've seen, large corporations really getting behind, how would you say, and committing to strong environmental targets, not just the political talking class, but actual corporations, and realizing that they can drive change. And they're also seeing it, I think, as affecting their bottom line. It makes sense to make products that are more sustainable, because if you use less chemicals, less material, and if you're produced using less energy, then you can do it you can have a better margin. So it only makes sense. So the idea that sustainability and what would you say, more environmentally friendly products and production, it's actually, I think, being driven by the economics. We're very fortunate. A lot of the times we sort of smile and we think, wow, we're really lucky that we're based in Stockholm. Because as a small company, and especially within Sweden, as a Canadian, I can say that there's a very flat hierarchy here. So you're able to sit down and meet decision makers quite easily and present an idea and have an open discussion. And if it's a good idea, then they'll be open to it.
It makes sense.
It makes sense.
To have a reflection.
Exactly. So, and that's part of the Swedish society. I would say that there isn't a lot of credit given to formality. They're more practical, and there's a word called samarbete, working together. So you sit down at a round table usually, you have a meeting, you drink strong coffee, and you talk about how it's possible, and you're very open. It's not a zero-sum game. So being in Sweden, we're really lucky to be in Stockholm. There's a world-class designers who love new ideas that are trying to also think about how will their product survive in the next 50 years, or what can they do instead of just using the same old material, same old plastic or same old steel.
Okay. Thank you so much, Jeremiah, and see you
later.
See you later.
Après avoir dormi dans la campagne autour de Stockholm, nous y retournons aujourd'hui pour rencontrer Anders Noren, directeur de l'entreprise Ecofiltration.
Yes, my name is Anders Noren. I am the former CEO and now responsible of business development and sales in Ecofiltration. And Ecofiltration, we, as the name says, we have a filter technology, a unique technology developed at KTH, the Royal Institute of Technology in Stockholm. And we work with so-called reactive filter media. And those are natural filters, mineral-based, that has ability to absorb different material in water and air. And we use them specifically to remove nutrients from wastewater, because these nutrients, they cause what you call eutrophication, which means that they consume oxygen in the waters, and they prohibit other lives to exist, and they trigger algae growth. So you want to remove them from all wastewater sources before they reach the water, so that the water doesn't become polluted. Okay. And we can apply this technology on all leaks, and mainly there are 3 leaks. Small sewers, single households not connected to a municipal treatment plant. You have the big treatment plants, municipal or industrial, letting out nutrients, and you have farmland where we fertilize, and the fertilizer that's not taken up by the crop is run off into ditches and then out into the lakes and waters. And our technology can actually be applied to all these leaks in a flexible and scalable way. And the good thing is that it's natural, it's no chemicals, it's very high efficiency. And when these filters are saturated, you can recycle it as it is directly on farmland. So it becomes a fertilizer, and thus it's a circular, sustainable product. And you don't need to do any treatment because the size of the granules in the filter are optimized to work with existing farming equipment. Well, it was developed at the Royal Institute of Technology in Stockholm under Professor Gunnar Renman and his group of scientists. And it was a direct, direct solution that addressed the increasing legislation from the EU to actually stop eutrophication and to stop phosphorus from flowing out. Yes, I guess there are not only traditional systems of filtration, but the normal way of actually removing nutrients from the wastewater is to use chemicals. So you actually dose iron or aluminium oxide, and then it flocculates the phosphorus into a sludge. It actually increases sludge production with up to 40%. Which is bad because the world has too much sludge. So you want to avoid that. And also it actually binds the phosphorus so hard that you cannot recycle it, or it's not available for the plants. So if you spread the sludge on the farmland, it just stays in the ground, but it cannot be used by the plants. So that is a problem. And then sometimes in small treatment plants, you use infiltration beds. Actually use the soil or the sand, but modern science shows that the ability to absorb phosphorus in these infiltration beds is very low, so maybe only up to 8%, which means that eventually the phosphorus will not stay in the ground, it will come out. So it's just a temporary stop. So these old infiltration beds that are still very, very, very common in Sweden and in many other countries actually don't do the job. So there are no other actually available filter solutions that does the job as good as our filters. So when you're about to look for a job and you choose between going into one of the big consultancy firms or a big company producing furniture or whatever, and to start a Cleantech business or join a Cleantech company, I think give yourself the chance to work with something that means something. Because from now on, the biggest challenge of the world is to save the planet. That's clear. So if you don't take that step, it's hard to see that you will get there eventually, because you will get a good salary and will have a career, and then you will never join the good cause. So give yourself a chance to try it, and then I'm sure you will get stuck, because it's so fulfilling and so meaningful. And actually, as there is such a need for new innovative green technology, there is also a lot of business opportunities down the road. So it might actually be the best investment you've done with your life. So just take that opportunity.
First of all, we should understand the impact of the companies in the sustainability of our planet. This can be traced back 100 years when we didn't really care or know about environmental problems, and we just focused on economic growth. So now companies have grown very large, and they've grown with that core agenda. Now, as a part of the market wants a more sustainable car, for example, they create a more sustainable car to meet the demands of the market. But I think large companies, I think their role is to respond quickly and radically to the demands of a population that needs much more sustainable cars. But I think small companies like us have the most important role to play, because we have an opportunity to radically change things, to propose a completely different vehicle, to communicate to very many people so that they can understand there is a much more sustainable option that can be cooler and so forth, and then focus hard on creating that market so that the big guys can shift their focus and capitalize on it. So yeah, I mean, they have a huge role in damaging the environment, and they can have a huge role in fixing it, but they just have to be ready to make radical changes.
I do think so. I do think that companies absolutely have a role in sustainable development. I would say, though, that capitalism is a contact sport, of course, and sometimes it's not just human actors that get bruised in that contact sport, it's also the environment. So I would say that politics and politicians, they set the framework for society and for business to operate in. At the same time, I think that you're seeing more and more businesses realize that for sustainable growth, or to have a business that runs over the long term, they can't just pollute. They can't just produce a product where they're not being responsible. Because especially in Western countries, Europe, US, Canada, consumers are becoming wise and are wanting a story associated with their products. They're wanting to know that their mobile phone isn't going to go to a landfill or isn't going to potentially end up in the ocean.
Definitely, yes. I think that political awareness and decision making is it's too slow a process, like I said before, and it takes too long time to actually legislate and to
Apply.
to get new technologies needed to be applied. So companies has a very big responsibility in showing this way, and company and private money. And that can make a difference to actually get concrete installations and pilot projects as references, as a base for creating know-how and making people aware of that. There are actually solutions around, and it's not so expensive, it works good, and we can all contribute to it. And also to wake up the politicians and speed up the decision process. So I think there are many good examples, but there must be more good examples. And one of my biggest headaches is this slowness in the process. So just to if we take a global look, I think the number is that we are, in Sweden and many other developed countries, we are treating like 96% of the wastewater. Globally, we treat 13%, meaning we let out most of the wastewater untreated. And we cannot act fast enough, as the water issue is one of the biggest issues. It might even be a more important issue than the climate issue, which is not even talked about either. So any initiative from companies having money and so on, showing the way, is really important.